Welcome to Fintech Week New York. Great turnout. And I've been living in New York for the last 20 years. I'm born and raised in Stockholm, Sweden. Came over here on scholarships and stayed. Got involved with Fintech in 2011 with the Jobs Act. We ended up lobbying both the House of Representatives and the Senate in 2011 to get what we know today to be the Jobs Act passed. And that year in 2011, those were 7 underlying laws that were separately put together March 8, 2012 by the House to turn into the Jobs Act. And I find myself today in the peculiar situation of actually having worked with those laws in the SEC every week for almost 4 years to pass them and direct them on how to implement those laws. So it's kind of interesting to see now that the playing ground is global and the same law applies, and the SEC is flexing and saying, hold on a second, we got rules and regulations, and it applies to everybody else around the world who wants to do an ICO. So as this is evolving and they're actually putting in and implementing their laws on how to do and how to raise capital here, I think over the last couple of weeks, we started to see how a couple of those exemptions can be used to raise capital in the US, whether or not you are a US company or a foreign company, which is interesting enough. So my family office has been involved in investing in real estate, hedge funds, and now crypto. We're seeding 3 crypto hedge funds right now in an asset management company. So, we're trying to be vertically integrated, being able to launch an accelerator on Wall Street, as well as investing in crypto opportunities and ICOs on a global basis. And today we're going to have quite a few groups who's involved in investing, and having done some ICOs, doing some, involved with some hedge funds, including, MoFo with Josh, who's going to talk about how they're working with companies doing ICOs and what the challenges are. So I'm going to give everybody on the board here, a couple minutes to talk about your business, what you've done, what you're planning to do, and also tell us where you went to school, so we know a little bit about your background, where you grew up. You want to start, Tom?
Yeah, hi again, everybody.
Hello.
So background-wise, just did a couple degrees in finance in Canada and in Singapore, and more interestingly, did the graduate studies program down at NASA for Singularity University. If any other Singularity grads in the room? Yeah. So at the moment, so I've done a few investment vehicles in crypto. I've just been doing technology companies for about a decade now, and current project you heard about. Most of my time in crypto has been looking to get involved with projects at a very early stage. So Ethereum during their ICO, buying Ethereum at 5 cents, following that project very closely, and seeking to find great teams who are building disruptive protocols. Yeah, that works. That's my full-time job today. I said that first. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to go over to you.
Hi. Julian Svirsky. Went to a couple of schools. Went to Johns Hopkins for biomedical engineering and computer science, and then international economics in Carnegie Mellon. Just a little bit about my company. I'm actually here representing Atlant, which is an upcoming ICO. We did a small friends and family round, raised about $1.5 million last couple of weeks. Basically, we're a tokenization platform and an Airbnb killer. In essence, we plan to list properties in tokenized form on an exchange, such that they would trade within the framework of our platform as stocks do on exchange. So similar to REITs, but much individual units would trade. And then P2P platform would lower fees from 30% of Airbnb and Booking to roughly 3 to 5%, substantial cost savings.
I'm going to ask you more about your platform, because there are quite a few that are involved in the real estate space. So I'm going to ask you later on, the difference between you and some other groups.
For sure.
Josh?
Hi, my name is Josh Klayman. In terms of school, I went to Penn for undergrad. I went to Temple Law School while raising a family. I also, currently, I am one of the leaders of Morrison & Foerster's global blockchain and smart contracts practice. So we started it about 1.5 years ago. We have over 70 lawyers around the world who are focused on this, as well as on their day-to-day practices. So the way we structured it when creating it, we wanted to have a holistic approach. So for example, we have tax lawyers who also know about blockchain and crypto. We have finance lawyers who know about blockchain. We have investment management, IP, all sorts of things to cover sort of every aspect, or at least we'd like to think every aspect. But we continue to learn. In terms of my background, I am a finance lawyer by practice. And prior to getting involved in blockchain and smart contracts and cryptocurrency and token offerings, I represented banks and hedge funds, as well as technology companies and other borrowers in leveraged finance transactions. So,
Thank you.
Testing. Oh, this works.
Oh, great.
All right. My name is Michael Cal. I was lucky enough to first start attending college when I was 14. Didn't go full-time until I was 15 at the early entrance program in Los Angeles. After I graduated when I was 20, I had some internships with various online companies, started my own business. Didn't really get involved in crypto until 2012, 2013 when I first bought my Bitcoins. Didn't really get further involved until around the end of 2013. So some of the things, I'm a paid consultant for Silicon Valley, HBO's show on season 2. They gave me a 3-second cameo. If you guys recognize me, let me know. Most of the machines on the show were actually from me, from one of my companies, zoomhash.com, where they set it on fire. But ever since then, I've been very involved with mining from Bitcoin. I'm also right now involved with a company called Block One, which I think is an amazing company. Early investor, and one of our products is EOS, which I'm sure many of you have seen on the badges.
No, thank you for that. And actually, I'm going to want to start with Michael, since they actually did an ICO and they raised a couple $100 million. And maybe you want to tell everybody how much you guys raised in 5 days?
So depending on the exchange rate you use, anywhere from I think around 180 million to 200. So depending on the exchange rate you look at.
So you got one of the top leading ICOs in history right here, which is pretty impressive. Now, tell me, how did you guys do this? Did you run it for a year or for 5 days? How was it?
It's still going on. So the token sale is still going on. It doesn't end for at least 9 months. It's a 1-year long token sale. And the reason why we chose to do this, because we thought it's more fair with a longer distribution than a short distribution.
So technically, you guys raised $185 million in 5 days, correct? But
Correct. It's still
ago,
going
right?
on. Yeah.
And then you're selling what, 2 million tokens a day, or how does it work?
So there's a total of about 1 billion tokens. There's a total of 1 billion tokens. The first 5 days, 20% of the tokens are released. And then subsequent days are, it's about 2 million tokens are released in subsequent days.
Well, it's interesting to see how other groups are doing it and how they're strategizing on how to do their ICO. How much do you release? When do you release it? How do you do it? And in their case, they raised $185 million. Interestingly enough, none were taken from U.S. citizens, right?
Correct. We chose to block the U.S. Not because we thought we were a security, but we didn't have time to fully figure out how to set up the systems to comply with the various state laws.
Well, when you started with your pre-sales, how long ago?
This was in June this was in June, correct, end of June.
All right, so in about a month and a half, you guys got the commitments you needed, none from the U.S.
We didn't have any pre-commitments, actually. We just launched, and the market decided they liked what we were trying to do, and joined our cause.
Well, maybe you can want to explain to everybody here in layman terms, what does EOS going to accomplish? Because it's not live yet, right? You're going to do it in testnet right now.
Correct. So people can start using the testnet very, very soon, within the month, to start building decentralized applications. So we have a very talented CTO. His name is Dan Larimore. He has a record of actually building successful decentralized applications. If you look at Steemit, if you look at BitShares. So there's a track history of building application-specific blockchains for those various applications. However, because of that, he knows what what's lacking in the ecosystem, what the shortfalls of various generalized, blockchains have. So therefore, he's able to create a solution to those problems by building a platform for others to build applications on, decentralized blockchain applications.
Well, who's going to be your competition, so everybody here can actually get a little framework of who are you going to be similar to? Because it's a big market, and I'm finding a lot of people in this space. We don't have the time to see what new ICOs are doing because they're coming out so quickly, and sometimes you get so stuck in the vertical you're in of doing what you're doing. Maybe you want to share that with us.
So I think for us, we concentrate on ourselves. We don't, I mean, we have a general idea what others are trying to do, but Dan Larimar has been doing this for such a long time and has so much experience that we know what the next steps are, and we've been just concentrating on producing and executing our plans. So in terms of competition, I'm probably not the best person because I'm not looking at the competition every day because we concentrate on ourselves to make sure we deliver on our promises.
Okay, well, I'm excited about seeing it coming out, and I've been
Thank
following
you.
it for a while. I was having dinner with the boys in San Francisco just a week ago.
Nice.
Yeah, they're taking well care of me. Well, going over to you, Josh, then, because they stayed away from the U.S. for their ICO, and at that time, it wasn't really clear how the U.S. was going to react to it. We have a lot more progress today to see this, and having been able to cover this for a long time myself, likewise as you, what are some of the challenges you think ICOs are facing today that you guys can help them with? Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Okay, so first, my law firm would like me to say this is not legal advice, and my views don't represent the views necessarily of my firm. So, got that out of the way. So, I think in terms of challenges facing token sales today, if I think of a few, one is determining where to launch from. I think a lot of clients are struggling or trying to find guidance about where in the world they should be launching from. Some of the popular jurisdictions, as many of you know, are Switzerland, Singapore, Gibraltar, places around the world. So a lot of clients look for that information. And of course, it's a relatively uncertain regulatory landscape. I think some of the recent rulings by the US and in Singapore with the Monetary Authority, they've really made clear that there is a regulatory framework that applies. This isn't the Wild West, but it's yet unclear. There are no real bright lines as to whether something is a security or not. So that leads to another big challenge, which is, are you going to say that your token is a security? You're just going to take that assumption and follow those rules. That way it's a little bit more of a well-beaten path. Or are you going to try and say, no, I have a true utility token, and then try and structure it as much as you can so that it looks less like a security? Understanding that, of course, there is no bright line. And that you're taking a risk. Another challenge that I see is, given all of these token sales, how do folks differentiate themselves in the market? Right now we have a lot of companies raising a lot of money, but as more and more happen, there's only so many dollars out there, and how do you really stand out? A sub part of that, and then I'll end this answer, is how do you figure out how to put your token as in an integrated way as part of your offering? A lot of the pitches that I see that come across my desk, they have an idea which sounds great and it works for blockchain. You can definitely see why it would be useful, but the token is more of a tack on. It's not integrated, and it's not clear why anyone would purchase the token to participate versus just a money raising activity, which when you're trying to say something is not a security, it's a little bit difficult if basically people are going to be purchasing the token because they think it's going to appreciate.
That was very helpful. Talking about international law in the U.S., Bitfinex is now announcing that they're going to be expelling all U.S. investors. Bitfinex is in Hong Kong. So while I was out in Hong Kong, literally yesterday, having a car accident getting to the airport yesterday morning, thank goodness I'm well, I also found out that Korea has huge volume of trading. And I was in Seoul Friday talking about this. And over there, they have real estate and stocks, and now they're going crazy about cryptocurrency. So there's a huge movement over there as well in Russia, which leads me to the next question. Over back to you, Tom. Since you're in Canada, we're hearing about, the government being a little more relaxed on how to use token. Maybe they haven't decided how to use it. You can still raise money in the U.S. if you stick and are compliant with the laws here. But you're going to do quite a few ICOs. And how are you guys looking at the U.S. market versus the international market from Canada?
So, is this one working? Yeah. So we are. So I live in Canada. I spend a lot of time in places like Zurich, but our approach to the market post Ethereum was to go around the world and meet the people who have done the most successful token offerings or crowd sales. So Emma Channing at Argonne Group, who we're now working with, or MME in Switzerland, Luca, who did who's the lawyer behind the Ethereum crowd sale. So we really wanted to go in person to each of the jurisdictions and understand the opinion of the individuals there. And one interesting observation that might be useful to share is that the opinions differ. And so Emma will challenge MME on a lot of things and vice versa. So I think jurisdictionally, we've got corporate entities in many different countries around the world at this point. But the way we're looking at picking a jurisdiction to do an ICO in, or when we're analyzing investing in a company that's doing a token offering, there's no perfect jurisdiction. So there's been some phenomenally well-done ICOs, Tezos, Ethereum in Switzerland using the Swiss nonprofit model. It's not perfect. There is a directive from the Securities Commission there saying that it's okay to do these things in a certain way, but it's not written into law. And so that directive could be changed faster than a law could be changed. For example, whereas in Singapore, it's actually written into law that a token is a certain sort of thing, but then of course they just release this information about clarifying what exactly that is. In Canada, there's very little clarity. Our securities laws are quite different from the US, you know, to your point about crowdfunding earlier.
Right.
In, say, for example, British Columbia, where Vancouver is located, if you write an offering memorandum in a certain way, you can do that in a weekend, you can then go and sell equities in Starbucks to anybody. Not that you may not want to do that. But so Canada has very little directions on tokens. We're not doing any entities that are generating tokens. We're not actually investing in any entities generating tokens just yet in Canada.
All right, thank you for that. And I'm going to go to Julian now and ask you a little more about your real estate background. You did an ICO in real estate. You know, we also have, you know, a couple of the sponsors here, Bank X and LA Token. They're trying to do an ICO right now in the same space of real estate. So on the international side of things, you know, before these things came into place, you guys were marketing it. How did you guys market it? How did you go to market? And when did it start for you?
So I should say we actually didn't quite do an ICO yet. Our ICO is September 7th. We did a pre-sale round, quite a small round, mainly friends and family. And with respect to sort of legal framework, we received the legal opinion that we are not we're not a security. But nonetheless, we decided not to offer our ICO to US citizens or US persons. And I mean, just sort of a double protection. And further, there is talk that because of Brexit, potentially Europe will follow the US route, and we're actually now getting a legal opinion from another set of lawyers for EU, just to be extra careful. So, you know, prior to the ICO round.
All right, so you're not. So how come you're here in New York then, if you're not going to get money from the U.S.?
Well, there are people here from all over the world. It's one of the most international cities.
Or you want to get money from the U.S., but you haven't figured out how to do it yet. Maybe Josh can help you.
Perhaps you could. I mean, frankly, with respect to, I mean, our lawyer is in the Silicon Valley, but I'm happy to get another counsel, another opinion. But frankly, his opinion is such that we potentially could market ourselves in the U.S. because, I mean, I'll go into it further in my talk, but our token actually requires members or owners of the token to do work, to perform work, which sort of contrasts with the Howey test. But nonetheless, we just want, you know, better safe than sorry.
Well, can you explain what your company does then? I mean, what's the vision of your company to do in real estate? Are you going to manage properties? Are you actually going to take the cash flow from it? Are you going to own the equity in it and the debt?
So actually, it has two sides to the platform. One side is, if you will, so this is a rental. This is not
Rental properties only.
Yeah. So
globally or in the U.S. too?
Globally.
Okay.
So this is kind of an Airbnb killer. The rationale here is quite simple. Airbnb has 4,500 employees. The reason they have so many, and it's growing, the reason they have so many is there's massive contract sort of intermediation. So, you know, you show up to the property, you know, it's unkept, or, you know, it's not what you're expecting, and you basically file a complaint. Someone at Airbnb has to address to that. They have to send you an email. They have to give you a phone call. They have to somehow figure out what to do. There is a much more elegant way of doing this. I have to tell you, we didn't reinvent the wheel. We took the model of BitSquare and OpenBazaar, which are two open source decentralized projects.
Do you want to explain to everybody else what BitSquare is? Because I don't even know what it is.
So BitSquare is an exchange which you know, allows sort of transaction you know, Bitcoin to fiat completely without a centralized counterparty. OpenBazaar is kind of a decentralized eBay. And the idea is that both of these services have and we took them as a model. Both of these services have essentially intermediation between two counterparties that is not centralized. An arbiter, who is a token holder, gets elected. That arbiter performs some kind of a task to try to figure out who's right and who's wrong. And from the escrow of one of the parties, he receives payment. If that arbiter is, and then essentially the arbiter keeps on performing these tasks. So
Okay, all right. So service providers,
if
decentralized.
the interesting thing is you don't have to have, a lot of employees sitting in desks. You don't have to pay them, pensions. You don't have to pay. In other words, you can basically outsource work when you need to.
I could have used that 10 years ago. We had a corporate housing business in New York, top 5. We had literally 150 apartments and 15 buildings. Imagine how many toilets go wrong or internet goes wrong. It's a nightmare.
But further, what's interesting, this is the P2P part of my platform, but further what's interesting is if this arbiter goes rogue and for some reason decides to collude with one of the sides, he actually has an escrow in the system as well to be able to participate in these arbitration deals. And if there's a complaint against him, a senior arbiter, which has more points in the system, judges him. And then if he's found to be wrong, then his escrow is taken away. And so, this sounds a little bit convoluted, but basically the system works quite well on these other two platforms. And long story short, to sum it up, instead of 30% in Airbnb, you end up paying 3 to 5%, which is what we're aiming. So that's one side. I don't want to hold up the discussion.
Well, I can see, we've been involved with a lot of, summer rental businesses, vacation rental businesses, and then you have the single home investment community that we've been involved with. I always thought the more bedrooms you have, more apartments you have, the more problems you have. So logistically, it was the nightmare. How do you deal with that? So you're coming up with a solution how to solve that. I like that. And Colony, for instance, who has a lot of single-family homes, maybe they can be a client one day.
And if I may, just very quickly, so the other side of the platform is essentially tokenization of property, which we started to talk about. So we're not owning properties, we're not managing properties. Essentially, it's a platform. So if you think about it, in the 60s in the US, they invented REITs, real estate investment trusts. And so initially, people just had properties. They said, well, why do we need REITs? Who wants to buy this now? REITs in the US are over $1 trillion of assets. And essentially, so the question is, you can trade stocks, you can trade bonds, you have, fractional shares of these things, right? Why can't you trade pieces of a house? And so essentially, we're creating a platform. Mind you, we're, not a security, we're a platform where these things can be traded. We're creating a platform whereby an asset, which is a house, a factory, what have you, can be put into an SPV. The SPV then will get tokenized, and these tokens will be traded. They'll have bids and offers, and you can, a guy sitting in Beijing can click a button, lift an offer on the property in San Francisco, and it's theirs, without signing any.
And would that include the debt on the property, or would it be 100% equity?
Right
would have
now,
to be 100% equity, right?
Right now, we haven't included the debt component because basically the SPV would own 100% of the asset, and that would be the entirety of the holding of the SPV. But for, going further, we can include loans, et cetera. But we're just.
I made an investment in a magazine called Time Related News. What we did for the last 4 years was just to track all of the crowdfunding real estate platforms. The holy grail was, how do you fractionalize it? We tried that on the laws in the U.S., and granted, there's, out of the 200 crowdfunding real estate platforms in North America and around the world that we tracked 4 years ago, top 20 in the report we come out with shows that only 8 had done a Series A and 4 had done a Series B. And granted, they have a $100 million valuation, but that's the venture capital model. Keep raising money continuously and grow. And we just felt there was a failure in the crowdfunding laws in the U.S. allowing that to happen for fractionalization. We tried. So I think that the ICOs will allow us to do this because now you also have a global marketplace. Anybody around the globe can invest, which leads me to the next question. It's going to go back to Michael. Now, we only got 5 minutes left. But Michael, look, with your experience that your firm raised over $200 million, 185 in 5 days, keep on raising money now. You're probably up to $250 million right now. I wouldn't be surprised. What kind
I
of
think
advice?
it's closer to 400 million, but
400 million. 400 million. So you got one of the world record, well, the world record right now. There you go. Number 1 in the world. Well done. Brendan, well done. I don't know where you are. Oh, there you are. The CEO of EO sitting in the corner there. Grab him later. He has money to spend. No. Incidentally enough, they didn't raise money from the U.S. and up to 400 now. What advice would you give Julian and Tom on doing their ICO as they're starting now, and you guys see what other people are doing? You're traveling around the world speaking at conferences globally right now. You're heavily involved in China as well. Correct. What kind of advice would you give them and everybody else here in the room?
Yeah, my biggest advice would be to concentrate on the product offering more than anything else. We saw a very big need in the market for a decentralized blockchain that people can actually build on. And a lot of developers actually realized this need, and they supported us. And we were very happy to see this much support. So all these activities we try to do is build communities, build the developers, and then also just focus on the product itself.
Tom?
That's good advice. I like that advice. Question?
Well, what do you want to leave for everybody here? How can they help you when you're ready for your ICO, besides investors coming to you? What else can you guys accomplish that would be good for people in this audience? Since we only have a couple minutes left, I'm going to have everybody just leave a couple sentences to everybody here in the audience what you want them to take away.
In terms of, different categories, different people, if you're doing an ICO, work with, the SEC is pursuing cases right now actively. Work with great lawyers, work with great service providers. You can go meet Luca at MME, go meet Luca. Really focus on quality service providers and partner up. If you are investing in ICOs, most successful venture capital fund strategy of all time is to pick a vertical. So I think we're at that point now where there's so many different tokens. If you can specialize in an area and really go deep and meet great teams that are building great infrastructure like you guys are, I think that's a good strategy. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities like the Protos token to invest in things where you've got a full-time team of people who've been doing this for a long time, investing for you. I'll leave it there.
Well, before we go to Julian, pick a good board. In the early days, the board would drive who would invest in you. And if you get a whale, then a lot of people just follow the whale. And we work, with family offices, hedge funds, institutional investors on that level. And we're partnering up with retail investor networks, literally here today, who's going to help us on the distribution on that side. So let's go to Julian. What do you want to leave everybody with?
So for everyone, just one thing that I thought is quite important in terms of if you're looking at ICOs or trying to examine an ICO, I think the two main important things. One is the team. You have to make sure that they're coherent. They've been together for a long time, and they can actually do what it is that they're presenting. And two is how much of their idea is or how close has their idea come to reality. So frankly, actually, my CTO was supposed to be sitting here. Unfortunately, fortunately rather, he's sitting there coding because hopefully before our 7th of September ICO, we're going to have a test net which everyone can touch and try to trade assets. So make sure that there is a tangible product that you can see at least to some extent. Maybe it's not completely flushed out, but that it's not just vaporware, not just a white paper. That's quite important.
Thank you, Julian. We'll go over to you, Josh.
I would echo Thomas about the service providers. First lawyers. Make sure that you consult with lawyers who are experienced in this space. And you may not always get the advice that you want to hear. That doesn't mean you're getting the wrong advice. I think lawyers who are conservative will be your friends. You can always decide to take your own risks, but you need people to explain the risks clearly. So if you find a lawyer who's willing to do whatever you want, run. Also, in terms of other service providers, Thomas mentioned Emma Channing and Luca Mueller. Those are both great. We work with them as well. It's important when you look at the whole transaction, you're going to have KYC issues. You're going to have AML issues. You're going to want to have someone to help you market. You're going to want to have someone audit your white paper and read your white paper and audit your smart contract for the token sale itself. So just having a great idea is not enough. You really need to collaborate and find a team if you want to do the best token sale.
Thank you, Josh. Michael, last words?
No, and I echo the advice that the people before me gave, and I would just like to emphasize, we have a very strong community in Asia, and that's from the grassroots. I mean, I was looking at the budget. We haven't spent we spent less than $20,000 so far in Asia in terms of travel. And marketing. So a lot of it is grassroots. People recognize the value of having a good product, a good team, and it's beautiful. This democratizes a lot of these visions that was only accessible to wealthy, qualified people. So this is amazing.
All right, so before I finish this in 30 seconds, thank you everybody here speaking, and maybe people who are investing right now want to raise your hand so every ICO can see you guys. Go ahead, raise your arms, investors. All right, all the ICOs, see who they are, go after them. Good, there you go. Now, let's thank the panel, and we'll take questions in the corner. Thank you.